Hi folks, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. What you see in the vise is a pimped up version of a very old fly called the Nomad. So without further ado, let's get into it. In the vise then is a Hanak H 970 barreless hook. This one's at size 8, it's on a heavy wire and it's in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using initially is from Semperfli. It's classic wax thread and it's at 3/0, quite a thick thread. And the first thing I want to do is just get a little bit of wax onto the thread. Now, I'm no great fan of this style of fly. I don't particularly get on with it. It might be just one of them bogey flies. But it was requested by Courtney, just so you know who to blame for why you're getting this. So what I want to do is start about 1/3 of the way back from the hook and just get a bump of thread on here. And that just takes a few turns with a 3/0 thread. It's quite thick, so you won't have to wait around long. Once you've got your bump, bring your thread to the rear, just check your beads not going to push it too far back. Once you're happy, you can pick up your scissors and remove your rat's tail. Now at this point, I'm going to add a little bit of super glue to that bump of thread, and then I'm going to push my bead up onto that. Now the Nomad's been about, well, ever since I started fly tying actually. I always remember buying a selection of flies when I started. I think it was from John Norris, and there was several different styles of Nomad in it, and I've still never caught a fish on this style of fly. So I've brought my thread to the back, and all I'm going to do with that is just loop it round the handle of my vise, just to get it out the road for the moment. The next thing I'm going to do is come in with some Semperfli floss. This is at 2/0, and it says Flo Red, but to me it's more a pink colour, which is fine. I'm going to catch in just behind the eye, and the reason I'm using floss is it will build up very quickly and I'll be able to get the shape I want. Now what I'm going to do with this, my rat's tail I'm going to bring back and just get a couple of wraps over the top, so you can see that I've brought it to about the middle of the dressing. And the reason for this is to stop me having any stray fibres at the bead end, or the eye end for that matter. Now for the moment I'm content that I want the floss flat, and I'm going to build up the shape I want around the bead, and it's a taper really from the bead down to the front of the fly. Just takes a couple of moments. At 2/0, as you can imagine, it doesn't take much effort to get quite a taper in. So I've done that. I'm going to twist my thread up, my flossed even, and I'm going to come in with my whip finish tool and finish that section off. Just 3 turns. Pull it nice and tight, and then you can take that away. Now, messing about with old traditional patterns is how new patterns and variations come into play, and there's lots of different patterns out there that you can just put your own twist onto. This is not one I would choose to mess with. I would rather just completely leave it alone. As I say, it's not been particularly successful for me over the years, and I don't own any. This will be the first one if I do put it in my box. So all I'm doing is I've got a little bit of contrast going on with the orange. I'm coming in with some UV resin, quite a bit. I want a nice thick coat on it, just to give it that smooth look. Now you can use super glue or varnish, but of course you would have to wait on that drying. Whereas with resins, you get the old instant gratification thing. Just make sure that's cured. Yep, it's perfect. Next, I'm going to pick my thread back up from the tail end, and I'm going to start to form a bump of thread at the back. It's got quite a long tail, this, and what you want is just to make sure, well, it doesn't make sure, but it does certainly help with tail fouling. And what I want to do is just bring my thread back up to where my bead is, like so. So the first Marabou I'm going to use is this stuff. It's Dragon Fly Time products. It's got £2 on it, so it's obviously from quite a ways back, but it's a lovely green shade. And you know, when you've been at the fly tying game for a while, you start to collect stuff over the years that doesn't see the light of day one decade to the next. So this is one of the Marabous I've dug out, and I thought, oh, that'll be nice on this pattern. So I'm going to take my thumb to my thumbnail as a guide to how much Marabou I'm taking, and I'm going to just put a little twist in that, and then over my wastebasket I'll remove this white part. I can then dress that up to the bead. Just pull it back. Don't want it overlapping your bead. Once you've got it fairly well lashed down, bring it up onto the top of the shank of the hook. And if you keep some pressure on the tail as you're coming back with your thread, that will ensure it stays on the top of the shank. Like so. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to bring my thread back up. And the second part of the tail is some comp candy. This is the Lunar White UV Marabou. And I've got a feather out here I've been working away with. And again, I'm going to take roughly the same amount from the thumbnail to the thumb knuckle. And I'll just grab that. I'm going to fold that just so. And again, over my wastebasket, I'll remove the little white waste here. Then I can catch that in at the end. And again, if you catch it in at the end there and you pull it back, keep a bit of pressure on it, it'll stay on the top of the shank of the hook, which is what I want for this pattern. It's not always the case. Sometimes you'll want to bend your Marabou around the shank of the hook. For this pattern, I want them to sit on top of each other. Now, what I want to do next is come in. It's quite a long-tailed fly, but I just want to even up the tails. And because you've used two different types of Marabou, you'll have to come in at the same time to just pinch away the tail. I'm just going to lick the thumb and forefinger in my left hand, slick it back, and there we have our tail in place. So next then, I'm going to use some of the Semperfli Gel Core Micro Fritz as the body. I'll just take a little bit of that off the spool, and I'm going to catch that in at the base here. Now the Nomads come in all shapes and sizes, and this variation's probably not unique. I would dare say somebody's tried the colour combination before, and if they haven't, I'll call it the Courtney Nomad, just so that he'll be blamed forevermore for me even attempting this fly. But yeah, no success for me. If it's a fly that works for you, please do let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear it. Maybe I'm fishing it wrong, or it's maybe just I've got no confidence in it. So I'm just bringing my Micro Fritz up the body of the fly, and I want to pause 2 millimeters from the bead. I'm going to catch that in on your side with my thread, and then a couple of turns in front, and I can come in and remove my micro Fritz. I mean, I dare say it looks fantastic in the photos, and it looks not bad as I'm looking at it now. I can't think of any reason why this wouldn't work, but I just know I'm not likely to catch fish with it. So next, I'm going to add a little bit of Straggle here. This is Flo Yellow, and I've got a bit off my reel, and I'm going to catch that in, just in that little bit of space I left. Then I can bring that round, and I want to get a minimum really of 3 turns of this in, so that I get that sort of leggy effect from the Straggle. And as I come down, I'm going to tighten up and bring my thread just over the bead. It is a brass bead. Then I can slick it all back, try and get as much back as you can. And then you can remove your excess Straggle Fritz. Now to finish off, I'm going to add a little bit of resin to my thread. You can use varnish, super glue, whatever your poison is. And on this occasion, instead of a whip finish, I'm just going to put a half hitch in. I'm using my finger just to hold the thread so it falls into the direction I want it to go. And once that's in place, I can snip that away and find my UV torch, give it a blast, and there is a modern pimped up version of an old pattern called the Nomad. Thanks Kyle for putting me on the spot with this. I know you had to remind me several times to do it, but I've finally got round to it. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's just a little play, and it just shows you what can be done with a little bit of imagination and inspiration. Thanks very much for watching the video. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time.